Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
What's the plan for Republicans in the state of Pennsylvania? I mean, how many times are we going to sit back and listen to the excuses of the national GOP, the state GOP, all the establishment Republicans? They continue to whine. They continue to complain. The problem is simple. It's mail-in ballots. That's the problem. The midterm election, Fetterman versus Oz, of all the mail-in ballots, Republicans only accounted for 20% of them. That means Democrats had an 80-20 lead going into Election Day when it comes to mail-in ballots. That's the problem here. It's not going to be talking points. It's not going to be some fancy strategy. We have got to match the Democrats at their ability to chase ballots and run up the score when it comes to mail-in voting. This whole problem ends today. Why? Because we're launching something called the Pennsylvania Chase. We're not going to sit back. We're not going to wait. We're not going to try to just overturn and revert some of the rules. We have to adapt to the current rules to win elections again statewide in Pennsylvania. We're committing through the Pennsylvania Chase to deploy a team of young professionals and college students to knock on 500,000 doors across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Election 2024 and the Pennsylvania Chase. Welcome back to Training Tuesday. The Rob Maness Show is live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, Republicans left over 100,000 Pennsylvania mail-in ballots on the table in 2020. And one of the improvements in our get out the vote strategy is the mail-in ballot chase operations being conducted in key swing states by groups like Turning Point Action and PA Chase, combined with voter registration operations by activist groups such as Scott Pressler's Early Vote Action and the campaign/RNC's efforts, gives us a real opportunity to win where? Pennsylvania. Why Pennsylvania? Well, the election just started there yesterday, and Pennsylvania has 19 electoral college votes, making it one of the states with the highest number of electoral votes among all the battleground states. Winning Pennsylvania significantly improves, sometimes it guarantees, a candidate's chances of getting to the 270 electoral votes that needed to win the presidency. But Pennsylvania's status as a swing state where neither Democrats nor Republicans hold a really secure majority means it can tilt the election for either candidate. Historically, it's been pivotal in presidential races, and it reflects broader national trends. The state's diverse electorate includes urban, suburban, and rural voters, and it's a microcosm of American politics. The Trump team's strategy involves expanding margins in rural areas while trying to win over or maintain support in urban and suburban areas, particularly targeting Black and Latino voters, because they might be disillusioned with economic and social policies coming from the left. But ballot chase operations will seal the deal. And here to explain all this for us is that man you just saw, Pennsylvania native Cliff Maloney, the founder of PA Chase and the designer of 300+ winning political campaigns around the United States of America. Cliff, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show.
Rob, always great to be with a patriot like you. It's an exciting time. As you said, ballots went out yesterday, so this is World War III for us, and I'm excited to see what results we can produce.
Oh, absolutely. You know, that normally my folks know that I don't use clips of my guests for my cold opens that I do every 15-minute segment. But today is going to be unusual because I'm going to use several of your clips of you, because it takes 3 times to go in someone's ear for them to remember something. So we're going to put your voice on this show as much as possible during this short hour we've got with you, Cliff. First of all, let me ask you this. Remind us about why you did PA Chase again there. I know you went into it a little bit in the opening clip, but just remind us, and what have you been doing up to yesterday in the operation?
Yeah, well, listen, in 2016, I'll give you a little background, Rob, for your viewers. 2016, I was in charge of Rand Paul's youth effort for his presidential campaign. And, I really started to understand the power of what the left does in terms of recruiting these young professionals, these college students, to go out and knock doors, right? And I realized very quickly that if you can focus on state races and build the bench, that's where the value is. And the left has understood this really for 30 or 40 years. And so I've been laser focused on that. 2018, 2020, and 2022, those 300 electoral wins you mentioned, that's from different PACs, different organizations I've worked with, all with the same tactic. Let's knock doors the way the left does to drive victories. But something changed after 2022. My home state is Pennsylvania, and that's one of the states I spend most of my time in because I think it is a crucial state, not just for the presidential race, but for the Senate, for control of the state house, to control somebody like Josh Shapiro and have pushback. And so after 2022, the Fetterman and Oz race, it was an eye-opener, right? Republicans spent 0 time with full-time ballot chasers compared to the Democrats having 100 people on the ground, practically year-round. And so I talked to certain people from the RNC, Trump's team, Turning Point Action, and they all encouraged me. They said, listen, let's do what the left does. Let's go in. Cliff, we know you love to participate in primaries, to take out the rhinos, replace them with people like Rob Maness and people that believe in liberty. And that's something I'll continue to do. But why don't you take all of these door knockers and this experience with logistics and infrastructure that you have, go back to your home state of PA, and own the ballot chase portion of the 2024 election? And that's what we're doing. We've got 120 people on the ground right now, Rob. We're knocking 500,000 doors. And when you ask the question of what have we been doing versus what are we going to be doing, well, right now we're still in the request phase. So some ballots are getting sent out. And the second that those ballots hit, we're not going to be requesting anymore. We're going to be focused on every GOP voter or independent voter that leans conservative that has a ballot. And as you said in your opener, the entire thing we're trying to solve is that Trump lost PA by 80,000 votes, but 141,000 people back in 2020 versus Biden, GOP voters, they requested a ballot and never sent it back. We fix that. We feel like we win PA and we win the White House.
Yeah. I get a feeling. I monitor your comms and Turning Point Actions really closely, and have been ever since I first had you on. That clip was from 2023 that we showed in the opening, and I think it was about 8 or 9 months ago about this operation. And yesterday, you released some data from the PA mail-in ballot process. Walk us through that data and tell us what it's telling you, because it's a very interesting story, I think.
Yeah, so understand that in Pennsylvania, you have to request a ballot. Okay, they're not automatically sent out like in some of these states. And so there's good indicators to look at where are the requests and which party is really leading on that, and comparing that to 2020. And so we got data yesterday that I released this morning after we analyzed it, and it's pretty remarkable. If you're looking for Trump to win the White House, it's very optimistic. And so here are the numbers. At this time for the 2024 cycle versus at this time in 2020, Democrats are now down 303,000 mail-in ballot requests. Now you might say, yeah, but there was a pandemic. But Rob, here's the thing that all your listeners and viewers need to understand. Harris needs 2020 level mail-in ballot support to win. That's how they were able to run up the score. And if somebody's not a mail-in voter, sure, some of them are going to vote on election day for Harris, but they're much less likely to. And so they're banking on these mail-in votes to try to run up the score. Now, where are Republicans? Well, Republicans are only down 50,000. And so if you look at the delta on that, we're both down because it's after 2020 with the pandemic, but that's a 250,000 mail-in ballot advantage from where we were in 2020. So I don't care about polls. I don't care about rhetoric and all these lefty legacy media talking points. Yeah, we should look at certain things in terms of polling to give us indicators. But when Democrats are down a net of 250,000 mail-in ballot requests from where they were in 2020, and we're only down, like I said, 50 compared to their 300,000, it tells me two things. One, the PA Chase, early vote action, Turning Point, Trump Force 47, all of our efforts with requesting ballots are working. And the second thing it tells me is the energy and the excitement for Kamala Harris, it's just not there, Rob. And that is a very, very good thing when it comes to us winning in 24.
Yeah, that's what I've been suspecting, is that her popularity right after the announcement that they kicked Joe Biden off the ticket has been puffed up by the media and the propagandists and those kind of folks that support her. So the question about the data, because, we had Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports on last week to talk about his polling and everything. And we don't trust polling data. But this data, tell us how it's reliable, because it's not polling data.
Yeah, I mean, these are actual mail-in ballot requests broken down by party from the Secretary of State. And then what we do is we work with two different data companies that we have, and we're able to compare where those requests were back in 2020 versus where they are now. And, sure, requests are not votes, but it's about as close as you can get as an indicator of where the momentum is, where the energy is. And look, Democrats are shaking in their boots right now, because if you're down 303,000 from where you were in 2020, you've got a lot of work to do. Philadelphia County, way down. Allegheny County, way down. And Rob, you pair that with the registration numbers just in general in Pennsylvania. So in 2020, Democrats had a registration advantage of over 700,000. So when I say that, there were 700,000 more Democrats registered than there were Republicans. Now it's just over 300,000. We've cut it in half. And so I give credit to a lot of groups. I give credit to a lot of people, but really a lot of this is just the momentum from Trump. It's the momentum from kind of a turnoff from the Biden-Harris White House. So you see that the mixture of organic support moving towards us, but we're also playing in the arena. In 2020, we didn't play the game of mail-in ballots. And here's how I break down the Republican culture, because I think a lot of us went through this. And before I do, let me start off by saying this. I get in trouble. MSNBC likes to make fun of me because I'm the mail-in ballot guy. But I say this publicly. I hate mail-in ballots. People should vote on Election Day. I'd like paper ballots. I don't want same-day registration. And I want hand counts. But those aren't the rules. And I think the more that Republicans came to that realization, we have to start playing by the rules, even if we don't like them. I'm tired of us forfeiting elections because we don't like the rules. So here's the culture rundown. Okay, in 2020, we all said, nobody vote by mail. There's too much potential for fraud. Okay, in 2021, we said, well, maybe the courts will fix it. They failed us. In 2022, we said, maybe the lawmakers will fix it. They failed us. And in 2023, we just said, wow, we got a big problem here. We looked in the mirror and said, all right, it's time to put on our uniforms and go play ball. And I think that's what we're doing right now. We've got full synergy between Early Vote Action, Turning Point, My Group Citizens Alliance with RPA Chase, and the entire GOP. I have to give Michael Whatley and Laura Trump tons of credit, because under their leadership, not Ronna McDaniel, we have seen a huge change in the idea that we have to play the game by the current rules and fight fire with fire. That's what we're doing in PA.
Absolutely, man. Well, we got to take a break. When we come back, we do have a live audience. We got some questions over there. We'll take that on in the next segment. Then you'll hear from Cliff again about those numbers in the opening cold open video that's coming up. And again, you got to hear something 3 times before you can remember it and it sinks in. So we're focused on that today and getting the winning message out for Pennsylvania in 2024. It's called PA Chase, my friends, PA Chase. We'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show.
Hello, I'm Brandon House, and I want to tell you about Numi. This is a swish. You just take 2 capfuls, squish it around your mouth for 3 to 4 minutes, and you're absorbing, according to the studies, glutathione. Now, you don't need to take my word for it. There are over 162,000 studies on PubMed on the power of glutathione. It is a powerful molecule that studies show detoxes our cells. Some studies even show that, well, glutathione might remove mercury from our brains, help to prevent things like Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. Now look, I'm not making claims. I'm just telling you what the research is showing about the powerful molecule glutathione. Numi is the product that contains glutathione. Melissa and I swish with this twice a day. We urge you to go to Numi.com/house1. That's Numi, NEUMI.com/HOWSE and the numeral 1. Begin finding out about the power of glutathione while also supporting this broadcast network. Thank you.
If you look at this time compared to this time in 2020, Democrat mail-in ballot requests are down 183,000. And people tell me all the time, like, Cliff, the left says there was a pandemic. Democrats need 2020 level of mail-in ballot support to win. So them being down 183,000 requests, it shows you the energy is with Trump. Democrats are not excited about Kamala Harris. And look, that's why it's not just doing the work, but it's going out there and showing everybody that the message of are you better now than you were under a Trump administration, it's penetrating. Ivory, the people we talk to at the door, they're excited. They want the country back. And after the attempted assassination yesterday, I mean, it's even more of seeing who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. And I think this is a time where the country, I don't say this often, a lot of people use this, that this is the most important election. This is the election to save our republic. I truly believe that. It's what inspires all of our 120 ballot chasers, and the conversations give me optimism.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Training Tuesday, and we're live on World YouTube and our X Spaces simulcast. And Cliff is right, and Cliff Maloney, that man, is our guest today. Now, keep in mind that clip was from back around the time right after the first assassination attempt. So the numbers that the Democrats, he said, were behind in that are a little bit different than where they are today. Cliff, the election of my lifetime is happening as we speak, man. And I agree with you. It's this election to save the republic, to try to give a course correction back to the constitutional republic that we were given by the founders after over 100 years of really not defaming it, but marking it up with and tattering it to pieces. You know, I mean, there's not much left there, but it's still there, and it's our right to re-implement it, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people ask me this question. They say, Cliff, you're this Ron Paul radical libertarian. How did you find yourself getting involved with Team Red? And I tell people, I say, well, does it really surprise you? This is a guy who's had the entire Justice Department, the entire FBI coming after him. They said they'd never impeach him. They impeached him. They said they'd never charge him with the crime. They charged him. They said they'd never convict him. They convicted him. And then they tried to assassinate him twice. Now, they obviously being, at this point, rogue actors and lunatics. But it's like, of course, I mean, when you look at this election, if there's ever a time to get involved with the Republican Party as a hardcore libertarian or as a hardcore constitutionalist, this is it. I mean, if you believe in free markets, look, this is we the people versus the deep state. This is we the people versus the uniparty. This is we the people versus the corrupt actors in D.C. And so I do think this is the time. This isn't a time to be casting some, protest vote. Look, we can all deal with that afterwards. And I always hated that talking point. Now, let's get through the general election. This is the time that makes sense. And so, yes, I'm putting all my energy, all my resources into making sure that Trump is in the White House. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to stop taking out rhinos in primaries. I mean, look at PA. In 2022, I took out the 2 most powerful Republicans, the appropriations chair in the House, the appropriations chair in the Senate. They're scumbag sellouts. They're gone. Just this past primary season in PA, we targeted 3 incumbents. I took 2 of them out, and we replaced them with hardcore liberty, free market conservatives. So I'm going to continue to do that. But this is the time for me to pull all my energy together to go out there and raise the money to fund these ballot chasers and to put our whole team on the ground. And Rob, look, if people are like, I want to get involved, there's two ways. Go to pachase.com right now. You can sponsor a ballot chaser. It's $175 for a full day of ballot chasing. And by the way, 100% of that money goes towards the ballot chasers' pay, their housing, or their gas cards. Okay, 100% of it. And if you want to volunteer, we'd love to have you either come to PA or work remotely. You can download the PA Chase app, or you can go to pachase.com and click to volunteer. We need all hands on deck. And for anybody sitting this election out, I'd encourage you. This is the election where we decide if we have a republic or not. And I think if we lose this, I really struggle with a path back for the country to restore sanity.
Share your concern, my friend. Well, let's take our question from the audience. Our host over there is Shell. Shell, I see the hand up from Sofa King.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Cliff. So it's serendipitous that Scott is here because my question actually pertains to Scott's relationship with what you guys are doing with the ballot chase. Is how well do you guys interconnect? Do you guys share a lot of information? I know there's different. You guys have different missions, but is there a bleed over of your infrastructure or structure, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and happy to have Scott answer as well. Look, Scott's one of our top partners, right? When I look at PA and people ask me, who do you trust? Who do you share data with? Who do you talk to daily? It's Scott Pressler, and it's Turning Point Action. I mean, there's plenty of folks in both those organizations, obviously. Scott's got a team of people across the state that we're linked up with. But here's how I break it down. Okay, Scott does everything, right? Let me brag on Scott for a little while. Okay, his team's been out in the field. They're registering voters. A lot of the registration success you're seeing, I don't take any credit for that. Okay, that is Scott going door to door, event to event, literally having those requests in hand, managing volunteers. Early Vote Action is the top dog when it comes to registration. They're also helping when it comes to ballot chasing. They're also helping when it comes to get out the vote. My specific role at the PA Chase is to focus on getting requests and getting the ballots in of people that have them at their door. And so the 120 ballot chasers that we have right now on the ground, we have about 10 Airbnbs throughout Pennsylvania. And we've got them in certain target areas because we don't just care about statewide. That's a priority, obviously, but they're on every ballot, right? So you've got Trump, McCormick, all the statewide are on every ballot. Well, what about Scott Perry, former Freedom Caucus chairman? We have 3 of our Airbnbs in Scott Perry's district. And then you look across the state at all the state house seats that we're trying to flip to take back the state house. So we have a check and balance on Shapiro. So that's what we're doing across the state. That's what we're focused on, is getting those people that have a ballot to turn it back in. But I give Scott credit because he's doing all the above. They're at every event we go to. They're at every rally that Trump holds. They're at every gun show. I mean, these guys are working it. And I want to just make one point. Tyler Boyer says this often when people say, we wish we had one group that could kind of have the mission or the focus so we could go there. That's not what the left does, guys. They have 8 to 12 different groups, 501c3s, 501c4s, PACs, campaigns in every swing state. And so I think this is the first cycle where we're really matching what they do. We're all coming together. We're sharing data. We're compliant. And I think that's a recipe for success.
Yeah, I think so. And Scott, if you'd like to weigh in with your thoughts on the audience member's question, go right ahead. I think we've got you, Mike. He may be away from his system right now, but we'll certainly bring him in if he raises his hand. One of the things that I always look at when I'm running for office or helping somebody run for office, if I can be somewhere on the ground, is listening to folks. Cliff, you've had door knockers out already. How many doors has the team knocked already, and what are they hearing from people that answer the door is one of my big questions.
Yeah, so we've crossed the 100,000 mark so far. Remember, we've been in the field since September 1. So we've gone in pretty heavy, and it's been actually very optimistic. So let me break it down. There's two phases, right? Phase one is, for us at least, phase one is September 1 through when ballots hit. And now here's the thing. There's 67 counties, and every county is going to send them out, not necessarily every county at a different time, but the post office is going to take a little more time in certain counties. We've already had a delay by the Secretary of State's office, the Department of State saying, hey, we need to delay it for some of the printing. But what we're going to do is the second that those ballots arrive, us at the PHAs, we're flipping over to target those that have a ballot. So phase one is getting low propensity Republicans to request a ballot. Phase two is going to those that have a ballot. So let me talk to you about phase one. The response has actually been a lot more positive than I initially thought, because you're not going to somebody saying, hey, you vote on election day every year. You haven't missed a general election the last 4 general elections, and we want you to now request a ballot. No, you're going to people that have voted in one of the last 4 generals and saying, hey, Bob, I see you voted in one of the last 4 generals. We can make it a lot easier for you if you fill out this request form. We've got it pre-filled out for you. We just need you to sign it and get it in. And that has made the conversations much easier. But Rob, when we flip over to Chase ballots, it'll become the simplest doors we've ever done. You know me, I mean, a lot of times we're doing advocacy and we're trying to win a primary, or we're trying to get a swing voter in a general. This is like taking candy from a baby. You're going to somebody not to advocate on the issues, not to persuade on the issues. You're going to somebody that has a ballot sitting on their dining room table. And it's like, Bill, can you send it back and commit to send it today? And if they say yes, well, we check the data a week later. And if that ballot's not in, this is the Democrat tactic that we're all using now, we go back to their door. And you say, Bill, hey, just checking in again. I know you said last week you'd send it. We'd really like to get your vote in today. Can you commit to doing it? And if they say yes, we say, great. If we don't see it, we'll be back next week. Democrats call this the power of annoying the voter, which sounds a little unethical, but Democrats are serious people and their tactics work.
Yep.
And if it works, you got to use it. So that's been the experience at the door so far.
That's fantastic news, especially going out. So you mentioned how much it costs to fund a door knocker for a day. If somebody wanted to give a larger donation and say fund one door knocker for a week for you, or even a month, or throughout the end of the election, do you have those numbers available for them if they reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, typically what we say to folks, if we're going to really include everything, if they want to sponsor a full ballot chaser for a month, $5,000. If they're looking to do 10 days, then it's obviously the simple math of $1,750. But look, even if somebody can chip in $5, phas.com, we've raised over $2.5 million. I'm trying to raise $3 million to get this thing fully funded. I'm committed to crisscrossing PA and even going outside of PA, to raise money from folks in New Jersey and New York that, you're not worried about winning those states in the general. PA decides the White House. Nate Silver, love him or hate him, he currently ranks PA as 96.1% that if Trump wins PA, he wins the White House. This is it. And look, we're lucky. I mean, there's a reason Scott chose PA. He looked at the numbers. When I got assigned to do PA about a year ago, I didn't know if it was going to become a state that, we couldn't win or we were guaranteed to win. Right now, we're ground zero, right? This is it. Pennsylvania is the path to the White House. And so anybody that can chip in a couple bucks, phas.com, it is much appreciated. And like I said, every dollar that comes in will go directly to the ballot chasers' pay, their housing, or their gas.
Now, do the other organizations besides Early Vote Action with Scott Presler, do they have folks on the ground in Pennsylvania too, or is PA Chase doing this and then Turning Point Action's teams are elsewhere? How does that?
Yeah, Turning Point Action absolutely has staff on the ground. I was just with Charlie earlier today doing his show. I mean, listen, they are crushing it in Arizona. They are crushing it in Wisconsin. Those are the 2 states that they have a mammoth of a paid ballot chase program. But yeah, they're here helping us. How big they go, honestly, it's probably going to be, how close do we get to success and what does polling look like? I know they have other targets, I believe, in Nevada and Georgia in terms of certain congressional districts. But, that's the delegation here. And look, Scott's in every state too. He's in PA, but his whole organization is in every key state. And that's why I say we need all hands on deck, right? This is the first cycle, Rob, that all these organizations have realized we need to delegate, we need to partner, we need to have synergy. And right now, I'm happy to report it's happening, and it scares the living daylights out of the Democrats in the Harris campaign.
Yeah, it has to, because you and I are talking about and complimenting the RNC and Michael Whatley and Laura Trump for partnering with work that we're doing in a campaign. And I don't think I've ever said that before in quite that way all at once.
Listen,
so unity is
if you
working, man.
if you would have caught me praising the GOP under Ronna McDaniel, I would have said that hell is frozen over. But no, I give Whatley and Trump a lot of credit. They have embraced mail-in voting. Once again, not because any of us endorse it, but they've embraced winning. And winning is the key. Yeah. Losers don't legislate. It is my number one thing when we do candidate trainings is teaching people you have to have a path to viability. And there are good reasons to run to spread a message. Folks like Ron Paul did that for many years. Yeah. And it's what inspired me. But at the end of the day, if you're going to play to win, you need to play by the current rules. And so, I think there's been a drastic change for the better. I'm very impressed with the RNC, very impressed with what all the state GOPs are doing, because it is a new leadership that says, listen, we're not just going to spend billions on TV ads and ignore the grassroots. They are going to spend money on TV. They are going to do radio. They're going to do digital. They're going to do texting. They're going to do mail. The outside groups, just like the DNC does, we have to come in and fill in the gap on the registering, on the chasing, and on all of the efforts that you see the Democrats tackling.
Yeah, and it's taken all of us to do it. We got to take another break, Cliff. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the court decisions and legal issues associated with, specifically with Pennsylvania. Get your thoughts on that, any concerns you have about them, and things like the postal union endorsing Kamala Harris, whether that's a concern or not, or how you can monitor it to make sure the system stays fair. We'll be right back with Cliff Maloney of PA Chase, that's Pennsylvania Chase, the big ballot operation that's going to win for the presidency of the United States and the down ballot races. I'm Rob Maness.
The terminology is normally called pre-canvassing. Plenty of other states allow the county boards to begin that process in advance of Election Day, whether it's 3 days or 7 days or however long. But in Pennsylvania, counties can only begin that process at 7 a.m. on election morning. Mail-in ballot pre-canvassing, which is really just the processing of mail-in ballot envelopes prior to Election Day with total ability to have observers present to make sure the process is transparent, is something that plenty of states do. I've advocated in favor of it. We knew this was an issue in 2020. It was on display for anyone paying attention to election results in Pennsylvania in 2020, and puts Pennsylvania at a unique disadvantage. I've advocated for our legislature to change that. It's a technical problem with a technical solution that does not benefit any candidate. It does not benefit any party. It just allows counties to begin processing mail-in ballot envelopes prior to Election Day. even if a single vote is not counted until 7 a.m. on election morning, the rest of that process takes time from tooth to tail. If you value election integrity, it's important to do that process in a thorough, responsible, timely way, and not something that people should be working around the clock 24 hours a day for days on end in shifts to do. And that's what we did in Philadelphia in 2020.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. It's Training Tuesday, and we are talking about the crucial ground operation that's happening right now. It's the Pennsylvania chase, the ballot chase for mail-in ballots in the state of Pennsylvania. There's a reason why it's called the Keystone State, folks, and I'm not from there, so I don't have to brag on it. But this state is the key to winning the presidency here in 2024. And the founder and creator of PHA's, Cliff Maloney, is here with us today talking about that. And Cliff, I just wanted to delve into a little bit there. That was Secretary of State, I think, Schmidt, giving a technocrat answer to a question about one of the things I'm sure was about how long it takes to count ballots in Pennsylvania. And we've already seen the warnings go out. Hey, what you see may not be what you're really seeing on election night, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't doubt the technical facts of what Schmidt was saying there, but he goes on to say nobody has any dirty hands on that. We were still counting in 2020, et cetera, trying to make excuses for himself. But is that still a problem? Is that why we're seeing these warnings that people just give the side eye to?
Yeah, it's a major problem. And I think, look, don't be pessimistic about that. We do have to make this thing too big to rig. I really feel that way. We need to overload. We need to make sure every Republican turns out, whether it's mail-in, early vote in person, whether it's election day. Every single person has to vote. I mean, let me give you an example, Rob. We took out a rhino in the primary. And that's what, been 6-7 months ago now? I mean, it's a long time ago. And that election was not certified until last week. Okay, and let me say, this is a Republican versus a Republican primary. Okay, we won by 8 votes out of over, I think it was close to 20,000 votes cast. We won by 8 votes. And so what happened was, let me give a breakdown for everybody listening here. They batch all of the mail-in ballots based on any errors or any issues that come about. And here are the potential issues. Okay, 1, it's not signed. Okay, that's a big issue. 2, it's got the wrong month. 3, it's got the wrong day. 4, it's got the wrong year. 5, one of those 3 is missing. Okay, 6, you have no privacy envelope within the envelope, no privacy sheet. So there are all these issues that come about. And then you have the regular issues in a state where you don't have mail-in ballots, which are, somebody tried to vote that we don't think they have residency in the area, or they weren't registered, and so they had to cast a provisional. Well, what happens is, Rob, each of these gets their own court case. And every single time there's a ruling, you can appeal it. And so in this race, it was Jamie Walsh versus Mike Cabell. Mike Cabell's the rhino. Jamie Walsh is a patriot, an absolute constitutionalist. We got him across the finish line. We were up by 8 votes. But what does the Republican establishment incumbent do? He uses all of the Joe Biden and Harris legal talking points to try to fight back. Because when you're down, you want as many votes to count as possible, because you're looking for options. And so when the PA government or the executive branch puts out these statements saying we might not have the results on election day, they're not wrong. But the reason it always hurts Republicans is because we're down by so much with these mail-in ballots that whenever they're adjudicating them, if any of them count, it never moves in our direction, because it's a batch of them that have no signature. Well, if usually it's 80-20, Democrat to Republican, and there's 10,000 ballots in a county that come in, just doing the back of the napkin math, that's 8,000 to 2,000 votes that are now counted, and that's 6,000 more for the Democrat in the state. And so, yes, we need to be worried about this. I do feel like the RNC, the GOP, a lot of these different groups that are doing election integrity, I feel like they're more prepared now than they ever have been. but the courts are going to make a lot of these decisions. Here is my challenge to anybody out there. Don't leave enough of a margin that the courts get to decide it. Don't try to bank on the courts to win this election. We need to make sure we have a too big to rig outcome where so many people show up that the difference in these so-called provisional ballots isn't enough for them to take it. Because every blue county is going to use the same talking point. We don't want to disenfranchise voters. I don't care if they're illegal. I don't care if they didn't sign, if they didn't date, if they don't have the secrecy envelope. They're not going to want to disenfranchise voters. That's their talking point. And Rob, remember this, just my last point here on this rant. When have we ever seen a judge after the election overturn it or call for a recall or a re-election? You don't see it because they're not in a situation where they're comfortable saying that they're going to be called an election denier the rest of their life. I'm sad that that's the state of affairs, but that's where we are. So we have to beat them without relying on the courts to uphold the rules.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, I'm almost 63, and I think I've seen 3 or 4 cases in my lifetime where judges have actually said, okay, you're going to have to go redo an election. 2 of those have been in the last couple of years, where a sheriff in Northwest Louisiana only won by 1 vote, it turned out. So every vote does count, folks. And then there was another recent one. I can't remember exactly where it's at, maybe a local race down in Georgia or something, but because of all the scrutiny. There have been 2 court cases, I think one where it says they, in Pennsylvania, to remedy some of this stuff, where they can't count ballots without a signature and they can't count ballots without a date. Is that accurate? And is that going to have any impact at all, or are we seeing something that we think we're seeing? But
yeah, so the most recent case ruled that you do have to date your ballot. I think the Democrats are going to refile, and if you ask me, to be honest, because I'm always a little too transparent, even to my own detriment, I think they're going to win that case. And so once again, I don't think we should rely on the courts. But right now, yes, it was overturned. And so in Pennsylvania, you have to date your ballot correctly. If you don't, it goes into the provisional pile, and they are, as of this moment, they are not to be counted. But like I said before, I don't have any faith in the courts to uphold these things. And look, the rules are never going to benefit the GOP until we have parity, meaning until we're at 50-50 on mail-in ballots. While the mail-in ballots are 80-20, which unfortunately has been our average with our statewide candidates since they changed the rules, you're going to have the Democrats spending millions of dollars in legal fees to get as many of those to count as possible. All we're asking is for legal votes to count. Follow the rules. Make sure you fill out your ballot, sign it, date it, put it in the secrecy envelope. That's all we're asking. But it's 2024, Rob. You know, we can't follow instructions that a 5-year-old could follow, apparently, on the Democrat side. And the courts, right now they're ruling with us, but I don't want to have to rely on them. I want to do the work to make it too big to rig so we don't have to rely on the courts to figure out who wins the election.
Yeah, and under these current rules, the way to do that is chase these ballots, man. Chase them. Now, of the pool of people, you studied the pool quite a bit of folks that did mail-in ballots in the previous elections, going back to at least 2020, I know. So do you have a good feel for who is in this pool of, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of Republicans have requested mail-in ballots? It's over 350,000, I think, if my memory serves me right. Do you have a good feel for who they are? I mean, how are they segregated out? Are they some low propensity voters, some that do mail-in balloting regularly or never have done it? Do you have a good feel for that?
Yeah, it's a pretty even mix. But I have to tell people, I mean, anybody that's trying to project this, it's like, listen, let's say there wasn't a pandemic, right? 2020 being a presidential, you're going to have a drop off in 22 naturally for both parties. And then 2024, it would usually go up because it's a presidential again, it's not a midterm. But then you add in the variable of the pandemic. And so, you know, if you look at just the support, let's talk about raw numbers. In 2020, Biden had 2 million mail-in votes to Trump's 600,000. That's 2020. In 2022, Fetterman gets 1 million mail-in votes to Oz's roughly, 200,000 and change. So think about that. Biden went from 2 million to Fetterman's 1 million, and Oz goes from Trump's 600,000 to over 200,000. So you see a pretty similar, I mean, we were cut by 50% on both of them, but where did Democrats end up? And the fact that they're, so far behind, 303,000 from where they were before, is still a good sign. But I think it is across the board. You're seeing a lot of Republicans be willing to do mail-in voting. We've talked a little bit. You mentioned the post office. I recommend you drop it off at the county clerk's office. If you're going to do mail-in voting, that's the most secure way. And the other thing, Rob, for any of the skeptics out there, I am trying to spend as much of my time as possible knocking in counties where Republican clerks will count the ballot. I think that's very important. It doesn't mean we should avoid Philly and avoid Allegheny County totally. I'm not saying that. But for us, where we are spending a lot of our resources, time, and energy is I want Republican clerks to be counting the ballot. It's much more secure. I feel much more confident. And I do think that's part of our strategy.
I think that's a good decision, and it needs to be part of that strategy. We got to take advantage of everything that we know, especially the rules that we don't like. We got to take our last break, Cliff. When we come back, we'll talk about it. Then remind people that the election has already started. It's time to get with it, folks. We'll be right back with Cliff Maloney of Pennsylvania Chase here in just a minute.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepcid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you. This is loaded with astaxanthin. That's a powerful antioxidant. Collagen, but top grade collagen. Studies show 95% of it is being absorbed in the body because of the way they develop it. Then we have something called cat's claw. That's an anti-inflammatory from a vine in Peru. It's the bark, and it's an anti-inflammatory. There are about 80 clinical trials on Bella Grace. Please get a subscription now and save. MelissaHouseBG.com.
The post office is packaging them together, and in Pennsylvania, today is the day that mail-in ballots can go out. Our entire goal at PA Chase is to take that 20% number of the results of the mail-in ballots, and we have to get to 33%. So we've had 120 full-time ballot chasers on the ground since September 1. We've been working on requests. All that changes this week. We are now going to be going to the doors of Republicans that have a ballot. Because remember, folks, I just said ballots go out today. For those of you that think the election starts November 5, no. The election starts today in Pennsylvania. I don't like the rules. I don't advocate for them. I'm not here to support them. But I'm here to say if you want to win, you have to play by the rules. And that's exactly what with the PA Chase.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. And our guest is that man right there, Cliff Maloney. He's the organizer and founder of PA Chase, the ballot chase operation in the great state of Pennsylvania, the keystone for the win for the Electoral College these days that Donald Trump needs in order to become president of the United States once again and implement his America First policies that the majority of Americans, I can confidently say that, want to see re-implemented or implemented for the first time if he didn't get to any in his first administration, because it's time to turn this republic around. And Cliff, one of the questions that we have, though, is what are the remaining challenges going in 49 days left that your folks on the ground are hearing about? Are there any major ones that seem insurmountable at this time? I mean, I've got a fairly good feeling about how things are going. It's very difficult these days to project those feelings out because everything changes so rapidly and everything. I was just wondering, tell us some more about what your ears are hearing and seeing on the ground.
Well, our plan with the 120 ballot chasers is, going very well. We know we projected out what do the numbers need to be, how many houses do we need to hit for the request. The fact that we're only down 50,000 compared to 2020 when the Dems are down 303,000, I mean, it shows me the work we're doing is working, right? It is impactful, it is effective. The things we can't control, Rob, are probably what worry me or keep me up at night. And right now, it's great. You know, we can't control some of the Democrat requests. Look, if you look back to the requests and you kind of follow the map of where they had surges, they typically have a surge in late August and early September. They didn't have that.
Yep.
And there's a lot of variables for why they didn't. I think it's just, you know, the energy for Harris is not there. But I tell people that the more that the Democrats fail and the more that we just keep pace with where we were in 2020, it's a huge win for us. And so the obstacles I look at are, do the Democrats bring in another 200, 300 people and get get requests through the roof? And then all of a sudden, you know, we're kind of underwater. I don't know. And for those that tell me you shouldn't be so loud, you know, the Democrats, you don't want to tell them. I'm like, listen, these people eat, sleep, and look at this stuff all day, right? They are serious folks. This is how they win the election, is mail-in ballot requests. We're not telling them anything that they don't know. What we're doing is just making sure we're broadcasting to Republicans and sharing with all the activists and the influencers out there and all the voters that, listen, we have to play in this arena. So I'm not worried about anything. I think Trump is on message. You know, the more he can focus on where you're better under a Trump administration than you are now, it's a winning message. In Pennsylvania, we have the voters. We just have to get them to vote. Charlie just put out a tweet earlier today that said, this election is not about Trump versus Harris. It's, do Trump supporters become Trump voters? That is the major question. I think we have the antidote to that. I think we have the solution, but we have to get our people to vote. We can't just talk about it. We can't say our vote doesn't count. So the greatest challenge I have is taking all that support for Trump and all those people that don't want 4 more years of the so-called Harris administration to actually get to the polls or to vote early in person or to vote by mail. We do that, we win this election.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it's so good to hear that the campaign, the party at the state level, the local levels, and the national level are all working, because they're working the traditional get out the vote effort in addition to the legal stuff the RNC is doing, right?
Yeah, and I think that that's the way it should be. I mean, like I said, we're mirroring what the Democrats do. The party handles all the top level spend. The campaigns handle all the top level spend. They do all the legal work. They work on poll watching and poll workers. And then these outside groups come in to do the ballot chase, the registration. Look, there's also a bunch of volunteer efforts within this, right? We have plenty of volunteers at the PHAs that are helping with early vote action events, with turning point events, with Trump Force 47 events. But I'm talking about big money and paid operations, right? And that's where, like I said, we have 120 full-time paid ballot chasers. Folks can sponsor them, phchase.com. I'll continue to plug that until we're fully funded. But it's about, where are you actually putting mega resources to help? That's not discounting the volunteer stuff. If people out there want to get involved, they want to volunteer a couple hours, that is extremely valuable. Please, whether it's with us, whether it's with Scott Pressler, whether it's with Charlie's group over at Turning Point or Trump Force 47, I don't care. I'm agnostic to that. But I think that we have to focus not just on volunteer like we did in 2020, but the Democrats are serious people. This is business to them, right? This is the adjudication of power. This is access. And to match that, we have to fight fire with fire when it comes to paid deployments, paid staffers, and we have to match them on that.
Oh, you're absolutely right. That's why my PAC, in all transparency, folks, my PAC is given donations to PHAs and other get out the vote efforts, plus the campaign for Trump 47, because of the efforts that are going on, and that we need this unity. Well, Scott Pressler's up with a mic, I think. Oh, I think we lost him again. Is he still over there, Shell?
No, sir. I believe he had another call.
Well, okay. Well, I guess we're not going to get to hear from Scott today on this show, but one of the things that I'm concerned about is the down ballot. You kind of briefly mentioned Scott Perry and Dave McCormick earlier in the show, Cliff. What makes you lose sleep at night over those kind of guys? Because I know Perry's in a challenging race, isn't he?
Yeah, they're gonna put over $10 million to try to take out Scott Perry. I think it's one of the top 5 DNC targets to take him out. Former Freedom Caucus chair, a personal friend of mine. He's an absolute warrior. Voted against McCarthy. I mean, just he's not afraid to do what he needs to do. And the craziest part is he's in a swing district. You know, you have a lot of these weak rhino Republicans, and I'm going to call them that because that's what they are, who are in R+30, R+40 districts, and they refuse to do what's right for the American people. Send all of our money to Ukraine, continue all of these continuing resolutions, fund the DOJ, fund the FBI. Scott Perry has no time for that. You know, he believes in the American people, and we just need more like him. So yeah, they're going to spend a bunch of time there. That's why we have 3 of our Airbnbs, 3 out of the 10 statewide. 3 of them are in Scott Perry's district because that's how much we're committed to getting Scott reelected. We need him serving the people of Pennsylvania in Congress and to continue to have a voice. What do I fear the most, Rob? Is Ben Shapiro. My gosh, I'm going to get in trouble for that one. Josh Shapiro being unchecked. We need the PA House back. We need Josh Shapiro to have checks and balances. We have the PA State Senate, but if we're going to have some real reform, if we're going to really get Pennsylvania back to where it needs to be, not just for Pennsylvania's sake, but for the sake of election reform for 2026 and especially 2028, we have to take back the state house. And so my biggest fear is that, you know, we come up short there. But I think if Trump wins and carries the state, we're going to have enough support in these state house districts. And so we're all in on targeting those. We're only down by 1 seat out of 203 state house seats in Pennsylvania. It is razor thin. And so we've got about 12 to 15 targets, depending on how polling goes. We're going to, you know, move resources to see where we need to be. But that's something that I think has to happen along with winning statewide.
So the state legislature seats are up this year, or is that for the following year?
Nope, that's this year. So you've got, you've got presidential, you've got the Senate race with McCormick and Casey, our state auditor's up, our state treasurer, our state attorney general. And so you've got a lot of these things up across the board. And the reality is we also have state Senate, state House. The state Senate's every 4 years. So we've got half those seats up, but every single state House seat is up. And so we've got to fight to win those.
Oh, absolutely. We're in the mode of projecting out right now here in Mississippi because next year, the odd years is when our elections happen, and then in another 3 years after that. So, but we're already planning for that eventuality because we've got to get these state houses and governorships and lieutenant governorships in the red, so to speak. Purple just doesn't do it, quite frankly, anymore. Well, Clip, go ahead. Let's give people the coordinates again. Remind them of how much it costs to fund a 1 day's door knocking ballot chaser for you, and
yes,
how they can help you otherwise.
Yeah, sure. Like I said, 2 ways you guys can help directly. One, if you'd like to volunteer, download the PA Chase app. You can send postcards, send text messages. You can call folks. And if you're willing to come to Pennsylvania, we'd love to have you on the ground. We're going to have a massive volunteer push in October leading up to November. And the second way, it costs $175 to sponsor a full day of ballot chasing that goes 100% to the ballot chasers' pay, their gas, and their housing. You can do that at pachase.com. Rob, appreciate you. If folks want to follow me on X, it's just @Maloney. If we had 100 Rob Manesses, we'd take back the Republic. But appreciate your viewership, appreciate your friendship, your mentorship, and honored to fight the good fight with you. Thanks so much, Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Cliff. And likewise, the same thing. Cliff Maloney's one of my mentors. You know, I came into this political game very, very late in life, so I've had to get some folks that are not traditional mentors, but definitely have spent the time on people like me, and I appreciate what you're doing. So keep up the fight. Maybe I'll take a trip up there on a weekend or something and say hello in one of these events or something. Cliff Maloney, folks, PA Chase, get over there, give them $175. All of us can afford $175. Come on. And if you want to give to Gator Pack, you can go to GATORPAC worldview.com, because we're investing in as many of these ballot chase operations as we can, in addition to helping President Trump in the Trump 47 campaign. And tomorrow, it's Whistleblower Wednesday. The great Jake Novak is back with us, and man, do we have a lot of stuff to talk about with this assassination attempt, the most recent one, other revelations, and if you carry a pager these days, you might not, well, you definitely don't want to keep it on your body itself, because the Israeli Defense Force has shown that's not good for your health. Take a look at that. We'll be talking about that tomorrow too, I'm sure, with Jake. I'll see you then on the Rob Maness Show at Worldview Tube and X Spaces simulcast.